Hello, my name is John Hernandez. I am the co founder and programmer for the Latin American Film Festival of Dallas. And you have just seen the film Silvia Prieto. We have today the director, Martin Rejtman, with us. Silvia Prieto is from 19, it came out in 1999. It's celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. So we thought it was a good opportunity to show it as the first film of our LAFFD Film Club. So thank you very much for being here with today, Martin.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, everyone. The film.
Well, I just wanted to ask you a few things, a little bit about kind of the making of this film, kind of a little bit about the strategies you have in kind of thinking about your own cinema, and I guess your thoughts also about it now, 25 years later, or probably even more since you actually made the movie.
Yeah.
Um, I want to start off with a little bit about, I guess, the situation making films, I guess, in Argentina in the 90s. I think when you started was at a time when there was, I think, a lack of standardization, almost like a lack of industrialization in cinema in the 90s. Uh, when you made your first films like Rapado, and you know, I think that was before the new Argentine cinema had kind of been coined, if you will, before like Mundo Grua and La Cienaga, all those films that I think people associate with that movement. Can you tell me a little bit about the difficulties of making a movie in Argentina in the 90s?
Yeah. Well, those are two different films. Rapado was my first film, and I made it with some help from the National Institute here. I was in a competition, and then my film got a second prize. The guy who got the first prize dropped out because he couldn't get the rest of the financing, and then I got the possibility to get some money from the Film Institute, a little bit, not too much, like $50,000, I think it was. But I got some help from elsewhere, from Holland, basically, the Netherlands, sorry, and then I could put together a very small production. But it was like a standard production. I mean, I had a standard crew, like 25 people, and we shot, I think, 4 or 5 weeks continuously, and then we finished the film, and that was that. But with Silvia Prieto, I didn't want to go through all the process of raising the money for making a movie, because that, it took me a long time to get that little money for Rapado. And then I decided to get together some friends. Some of them had some equipment. Paula Grandillo, the DOP, she had an ARRI camera, Super 16, which was brand new and probably the only one in Argentina at the time. And she was my friend. I met her in New York when I was studying film at NYU. And so we decided to team up, and I put together, well, I wrote a script for some friends, for Rosario Blefari, the main actress of the film, and also for Vicentico, who was already very well known as a singer for the Fabulosos Cadillacs, and Valeria Bertuccelli, who wasn't well known then, but now she's really well known here, another actress. And we were shooting the film during the weekends for a long period of time. We started at the end of 1994, and we released the film in 1999. So you can imagine, I mean, it was like, they had to be friends, and everything, all the equipments were at my place, and we shot in my neighborhood. The house of Silvia Prieto is the house of the sound man of the film, the sound recordist of the film. So everything was like done in a very small way, and but it didn't take me 2 or 3 years to raise the money for making the film, but it took me 3 years to make the film, or 4 years to make the film.
Have you found that? I mean, there's been like I would say long gaps in between films coming out. We had Two Shots Fired, and then La Practica last year. There was a long gap in there. You had a short film, Shakti, but has it become harder to make films for you, or is it just a situation where just they take a long time to come together for you to write them and to put the money together?
Yeah, it's both things. I mean, it's getting harder to make films now, to make independent movies, or to make films that are not like mainstream or or made for the streaming platforms. I mean, it's really harder. But at the same time, it takes me a long time to write a script, and yeah, and also there was a pandemic in the middle, so
Yeah.
that also was complicated. Um, but yes, it takes me a long time. Usually, it takes me a long time.
So I want to talk a little bit about, um, I guess, your writing practice, because I think like the structure of I guess of Silvia Prieto and some of your other movies in particular is very unlike some of what I've seen before, where there's obviously a clear, A to B plot progression, right? I think, for example, in Silvia Prieto, it's very much a case where you follow one character and that character kind of bumps into another character, and then it kind of bounce into different directions, and you kind of follow them, and it feels a little random, and it feels like almost like they're pinballs and they're crashing into different parts, and you're not sure where they're gonna end up. So I wonder, how exactly do you, I guess, how do you write that? How do you come up with a structure, in a way to follow a character in these kind of situations that feel a little bit random?
It's like I don't have a structure in mind when I start writing. I don't have a plot in mind when I start writing. I like writing scenes that I like, characters that I like, and putting them together somehow, and then hoping that in the process there's going to be a plot. And the plot is what happens when everything gets together. But I'm not always sure that during the process of writing, I'm not always sure that I will find that plot. It's very random, as you said, but when it's finished, I know that there is a structure there. I know that things are there for a reason. Otherwise, I wouldn't, finish the script. I wouldn't make the movie.
I know you also have I guess, a background in literature. You've released several books. Is there a difference for you whenever you're thinking like, "Oh, this is," I know, because I know Rapado was also a book as well.
Yeah.
Is there a difference for you when you're thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a book. This is going to be a film." So like, a manuscript versus a script.
Yeah, the only time that I made a film out of a short story was Rapado, and I had in mind when I wrote this short story, I had in mind that maybe I would write a script from that out of the story, but afterwards I tried to separate my literature from my films, and I know very well when I'm writing a short story and when I'm writing a script, because when I write a script, I have to have in mind a lot of things like production. For example, I have to write things that I know that I would like to shoot and
Yeah.
I will be able to shoot, and I'm already thinking about actors and locations when I write a script. But when I write a short story, I don't have any preconditions, so I can do whatever I want. But in any case, my short stories are not like big budget short stories. I mean, they are still low budget things, because uh, uh, I like those kinds of stories. I like things that are near me somehow, and that I know a little bit about. So I write about maybe the same themes and kind of characters and situations in the short stories and in the scripts, but as I said, with no preconditions when I write short stories.
From looking at it from the United States, I feel like in Argentina there's a very strong connection between, you know, literature and filmmaking. Like there's a really big, I guess, like I said, a big relationship between them, which feels very different from what I see in the United States, where the United States, I guess, filmmakers are very much concerned with movies, like directly going back to movies, referencing movies, whereas like other filmmakers in Argentina have feel like a deeper relationship to their own literature in
Mhm.
particular. How do you, I guess, how do you feel about that relationship, and how do you see it, I guess, in Argentina?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with you. Actually, haven't thought about it. Uh, Here, maybe it's because in the United States there is a big film industry, and here we have a very small film industry, and so there are many people making independent movies. Maybe more people making independent movies than people making films for the industry. And when you make independent movies, you somehow consider yourself an artist. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing that. You would do something else for money. And then you are more concerned with art. And then art is literature, art is painting, art is music. So you are more concerned with the overall idea of art. But I don't know. That's my guess. I don't know.
No, I think maybe the stuff that gets the stuff that gets filtered over here is stuff, like you get these last few years you had like the El Pampero films, right? The Tren que Lauque en la Flor, and you have like the Matias Piñero films, and they have kind of a they feel like they have that little bit of relationship to like Borges and the kind of like those that type of literature basically. I
You're absolutely,
wondered,
yeah.
yeah, I
You're
wondered like how if you thought that there was like some sort of like maybe some literature that you are kind of looking back at versus like trying to distinguish it just as cinema.
Well, Matias Piñeiro and the people from El Pampero, they all come from the university, Fundación Universidad del Cine, FUC, which is a film school
Yeah.
here, and they teach there. Well, not Matias, but the others. And so, and I think they have a very liberal arts oriented mind in a way. Yeah, but then you asked me something and I missed the question because I was
Well,
thinking
I
about.
guess if you thought that your own films had any kind of relationship to Argentine literature, or if you thought like it was even closely aligned with it, or if you think of it, I guess in your mind you always think of it like, no, this is like a plastic relationship to the image versus having kind of an association with the written word or to literature at all.
Um, yeah, I don't think that I could find the relationship between the films I make with the literature that's been written here. Actually, I never think of them in that relation. I don't know. I think of them as autonomous pieces, and also I don't like to think of them related to my own literature somehow, only in Rapado. But then afterwards, I try to, as I said, to separate both fields. So. No, but I like the written word, of course, and I like writing dialogues, and I like that the dialogues I write are being said exactly in the same way I wrote them. So I'm, for me, the spoken word or the written word is very important. I like very much using a voiceover. Um, so you may say that some people say that my films have a lot of literature in them. For me, they are just films, but I don't know. I use images, I use words, and both are parts of the film world somehow. For some people, films are more related to images than words, but that's a little bit old-fashioned, I think. I don't know.
I want to, I guess, talk a little bit about Silvia Prieto. Something that always I guess something that fascinates me about the movie is the way that certain objects kind of are passed around, like the Armani jacket and the little statue and things like that. Is there? I always wondered if kind of how do you choose those type of objects to kind of to highlight? For example, what about this Armani jacket is something that's like as interesting to you as an object to be passed around? Like if it has like any deeper significance almost rather than like, okay, this is just kind of, is it something that you kind of see in that you saw, I suppose, in the culture back then as something, oh, this is what characters uh, are thinking about, or the things that they want are.
Yeah, it's more things that they want. It's like in the 90s, like maybe imported things where people wanted them, somehow. So Armani is like a prestige somehow, no? I think that's why I put that in the film. And how I got that object, it was a friend of mine who had that jacket, and so I borrowed it for the shooting, and I think I never gave it back to him because as you said, it goes from one person to the other, and then the piece of clothing gets a little bit ruined in this circulation. And the little doll of Silvia Prieto, I didn't know what to use. I had written that there was this little doll, and asked a friend of mine who was an artist to make one for me, but she made something like very arty. And then I decided to unstylize. It was like a Chinese figure. It was too much. It was very beautiful, but too much for the film. So I went to this little doll is one thing that you put on top of the cake for the 15 when girls get 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is. I mean, I bought it in a store. I bought several ones. I have here. I can show you. Okay, here they are, too. Oops. They're here. I still have them after 25 years or more.
I wonder.
I will show you the other one.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, this is the one that I didn't use.
That's a little. Yeah, I can see why you went for the more.
It was too much. It was too much.
I wanted to ask you, in Silvia Prieto, I know you said that it was kind of evolving. Well, I wouldn't, I guess not evolving, but you were shooting it over time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you feel like, and I guess I was reading something about, I can't remember, I have to look it up if it was another director. I think they wrote something for Revista de Cine a few years ago. I can't remember if it was Rodrigo Moreno or Hernan Rosselli. It was one of them.
Yeah, they both wrote something.
Yeah,
about
I don't know which one it was that said it, but it was about kind of how your films have this. They're not just about the character. They're not just about like kind of like the language. It's also about recording very specific kind of streets, very specific apartments and what they look like and the clothes that people are wearing. I was wondering when I watched it this last week. I was thinking, Buenos Aires in the '90s looks like, when I see your film, it's like it's very sensuous. I feel like there's a warmth to the images, which I don't know if it's just like because it's shot on film, that it's very appealing. Even like a random street where the girls are, selling the stuff, where they give it out the samples. Even that is like, this is a very appealing image. I see like a fascination with the shirts that they're wearing. I see a fascination with the graffiti on the wall. These things. Is there almost like an anthropological interest in you recording your own time? Because I feel like I can't imagine you making like a period piece, like going back like 100 years and thinking, I want to shoot that. I always think of you like, I'm going to shoot what I see outside my window, basically.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I wouldn't make a period piece, and I like the present, and I really like the present. I like to record the present, and I know that when you record the present 25 years later, it's going to look different, and I like that idea, and the idea that you will see like the documentary part of filmmaking, that it's always there. I mean, even if you make a film in a studio, you will get an idea of how the period when that film was shot was. Even if there's always a hint, there's always something there that tells you, and yeah, that's part of the fascination I have with film. That you can record your time somehow, and that people will look at it later, and it will be like a document also. Besides the film you make, besides the story you tell, besides the acting that there's in the film, besides everything else, it's going to be a document, and that I like that idea.
I guess I want to wrap up with like a couple more questions, maybe just one. It's been 25 years since the film came out. I guess how do you feel about it now? Obviously, this movie is very important. I think. I mean, from a distance, I don't know the exact relationship that people in Argentina have to it because of Rosario Blefari. I know she was very popular singer with the Suarez, the band, and then she has her own solo stuff. So I know that it has that importance to it because I think it's a pivotal moment, a pivotal movie in her career. But I wonder, how do you feel about it now, looking back at it 25 years?
Actually, last time I watched it was 5 years ago, when it was 20 years old. and I usually don't watch my movies again, but that time I just uh, I went to do the introduction, and then I was walking as I was walking out. I decided to stay a little bit to see if the sound was right, and then I sat down on the stairs and I watched the whole film because I wanted to. I don't know. I started watching at the reaction of the audience, and then I wanted to see if people still reacted to it somehow, and it was nice. I really liked. I really liked it. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult to judge your own movies, but I know that there is still a connection between the audience and the film, and that's what I like. The film was like earlier this year. They asked me for the film to do a projection here in a movie theater, which is a huge movie theater, and it was completely sold out. So and then they asked me to release it for 1 week, and then it was completely sold out, and then it was on for 1 month. So and that was very recent. So I'm really moved by that. You know, it's like a old movie and still connects with some audience. And the audience, I went to one of the screenings, and the audience was really young. So I like that also very much. That there's young people still connecting with the film.
I'm glad to hear it. I guess one of my someone who's also working with me for the festival, they're very interested in Argentine literature, and they asked if any of your novels or books will ever be translated. If you knew anything about that.
I hope so, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. I don't know. Some people tried, but they couldn't get. I mean, some translators translated some short stories and offered them to publishers in the U.S., but I never got a feedback, so I don't know. Not for the moment. Maybe sometime, but not for the moment, unfortunately.
I guess the last question I'll ask. I know that you have I guess it's a busy time for you. You've released La Práctica last year, and this year you have the new documentary. I guess in English, the official title is Writers.
Right. That's right.
uh, um, I guess because you mentioned that there's a documentary element to kind of when you film something, right? You've made a few documentaries over the years. I think Copacabana and now this one.
Mhm.
Is there a difference in how you approach it? Because I feel like when you're writing a movie, you're sitting down. You say like you're saying you're following a character, you're writing a scene, and you kind of go and move forward, and who knows where you'll end up. But for a documentary, I guess what are you looking for?
Right, but then the end of Silvia Prieto is also a documentary. You know, all those shots of these
Yeah.
real Silvia Prietos, not talking about themselves. That was my first approach to documentary filmmaking somehow. Uh, but yeah, answering your question, I think shooting a documentary is like writing a script for me somehow, because I'm looking for the plot during the shooting. I'm looking for a story. I'm looking for a tale, and then the editing is also again a rewriting of that story, trying to find the story, and it's always very hard. I mean, it's always very difficult with a documentary. The editing, the shooting is much simpler because I don't have to prepare. Basically, well, I have to do some research, but I don't have to. It's not that when I make a feature, I know that what I wrote has to be on screen. But then, since I'm not writing a real script for a documentary, whatever happens is okay. So it's very relaxed in that way, and every scene I shoot is like a clue for the next one. It gives me a clue for what I have to shoot next. But then when you go back to the editing, maybe you have to mix everything up and try to find a form, try to find a structure. So it's like writing again.
Okay. Well, Martin, thank you very much for your time, for letting us show your movie. And we really appreciate it. This is our first LAFFD Film Club showing. We hope to have some more. But again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, John, and thank you for really being so knowledgeable about my movies and the Argentine cinema in general. Thank you. That's really appreciated.